Okay, we want to welcome everybody to our city council meeting this evening. We will go ahead and start with the prayer by Theron Garrett, and Sean Conroy will give our pledge of allegiance.
Our kind Father in heaven, we come before you this evening, grateful for the many blessings that we enjoy. We're grateful for the beautiful weather we've enjoyed today and the chance that we have now together as community members to discuss a few items here in the community. We're grateful for the opportunity we have to live here, for the wonderful people that we rub shoulders with. We pray a blessing upon each of our citizens, that they will receive those blessings that they need and strengthen those who are suffering or sick or afflicted in any way. We pray that thou bless us with a good night, that we can be productive and make wise decisions for this city and the decisions that we will discuss with the issues on the agenda tonight. And we pray for these things now in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Please rise and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We want to excuse Mayor Hakes. He is at a family commitment this evening, and I am Leslie Jones. I'll be acting in his place for the meeting tonight. We start off with a public forum. Is there anyone who signed up to speak? Okay. Consent agenda items.
I have a question.
Okay.
On number 2, are there any decisions or any plans on what we're going to do with the property short term so it looks better? Or?
Yeah, we're working on that topic, and one of the things that myself and Sean are going to do is have Rick Hansen, our building official, go out in there with us, take a look at it and see what thoughts he has. Also identify what the cost might be if we were to try to remodel this and rent it out for a time. So yeah, we're right in the middle of that process, and we'll keep you posted. Sean did go in and take a look at it. I don't know if you want to share any of your thoughts there.
There's mold on the walls and pretty strong smells.
We'd anticipate there would be probably an expensive little remodel, so give us about a month and we'll be back with you with some thoughts on that.
I'd suggest either fix it up or get rid of it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The status is, though, that we did close on it, right?
Yes, it's done. Yep.
Stephen wants
Good.
to move into it. Workforce housing.
Out of his budget.
I think he's got a few face masks, N95 masks you could wear at the house. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion that we approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, the motion has been made by Councilmember Carlson, seconded by Councilwoman Egbert.
Carlson, yes.
Egbert, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Okay, public hearing item. We have a consideration of an ordinance adoption amendments to Mapleton City Code Title 17 regarding subdivision requirements. Sean, we'll turn the time to you.
Thank you, members of the council. You'll recall just a couple of months ago, we adopted several amendments to the zoning or to the subdivision ordinance. These are some items that we wanted to include that we failed to include at that time, so we're just bringing these additional amendments back to you at this time. The first is adopting AASHTO as kind of a default for geometric standards and roadways. Stephen can answer any questions if you've got any on AASHTO. The second amendment is a proposal that would just require the developer, if they're building on a road that's a half+5 or a half+7 road, when they complete their portion, we're going to require them to overlay the road to the center line of the street. So that'll make for a better, more seamless improvement to that road infrastructure. Any question on those two items?
Do you want to mention the one that you emailed us?
Yep, that'll be the next two. So the next item is regarding streetlights. Going back here. So currently, when a subdivision is approved, before the plat gets recorded, they pay a fee that's based on the number of lots, and then the city orders streetlights through Rocky Mountain Power Rocky Mountain Power then installs them. We have to pay for a maintenance fee and for the installation of the lights. And so as we've looked at this, we're now proposing that we no longer utilize Rocky Mountain Power to install and maintain. We will select the light, select the standard, have the developer install those lights, and then we'll be responsible for the maintenance in the future. A couple of reasons for that. The cost right now that we're paying to Rocky Mountain Power is not justifiable. They charge us a annual maintenance fee, and they probably don't touch these lights once every 10 years or more. And so the cost to the city is pretty significant. We're not recouping enough of that money when the developments happen. The second is Rocky Mountain Power often is behind schedule. So a development will go in months and months later, or even years later, the streetlights then go in. And some neighbors get upset because the streetlight's in front of my house and I didn't know it. There's other issues that come from that. And then just their responsiveness when we need a maintenance. When there's maintenance that needs to be done. So what we'd like to do is then have the council provide some direction on the style. This is called the Town and Country style. It's a pretty minimalistic, low profile light. It's the one you see down here on the right. This is what we are currently using. It's the same light. Staff actually, I think, prefers that. It's a little less ornate. It kind of blends in a little bit better in our minds. But the council, if you'd prefer to look at something more like an acorn style light, that's the one on the left. A little larger, a little more expensive for the city to maintain long term, a little more expensive up front. But some may feel it's a more aesthetic look. I think our preference would be to use the Town and Country one. If the council likes the larger acorn style, maybe we just use those on the more significant roadways, on collector roads. But we're happy to have the council's direction on that.
Is there a difference in lumens between the two?
There was, but not much, right? And these are dark light certified, or dark sky certified, so the intent is that they provide, that the light is not spilling off the location and creating light pollution.
So it really is, that was my question too, Reed. So it really is just aesthetics.
Correct.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. When I first moved here and I saw that Town and Country one, I thought someone had just personally installed it in there. Because it
Yeah, they're
really,
pretty
it's pretty
simple.
rinky-dinky. Like,
Mhm.
but if we were gonna go with a choice that's a brighter light, but that's still within the dark sky range, that would be
Yeah.
okay. For me, I don't see why we would want to spend that. I love the idea of having some beautiful things along
Our
larger
commercial.
roads,
Yeah, our
but I
commercials.
can't rationalize
Yeah.
the additional expense for the smaller community areas. But I love this transition overall. I mean, taking the
Yeah.
ownership in to the developer and to us. So thanks for moving that forward.
Sean, are we tonight going to designate one or the other as part of, that's what we're,
Yeah.
okay.
Yep, and then what we'll do is we'll work with the lighting companies to establish the exact spec. The developer comes in, we just say, here's the light you need to purchase, here's where you need to put them in, and they'll do it.
Great.
Okay. And then the final item is the
One-
item
One question
sorry.
on that. Are the poles and the elevation for the light fixture the same?
They would be, yes.
So no difference at all in that regard?
Correct. The last item that I emailed out to the council today, this was kind of based on some of the discussions we had last night at the Planning Commission training. We'd like to propose an amendment that would allow us to ask for these if you're proposing a cul-de-sac, that we have the ability to request an access walkway that would extend through the cul-de-sac to an adjacent street or development, if it appears that would be a benefit to encourage pedestrian connectivity. I included some images of what that might look like. These are probably going to be more likely in our higher density areas. The lower density areas, there may not be a need for them. That's why there's some discretion involved. But situations like this, if you have a cul-de-sac next to a roadway, to provide the ability for people to
Sean, who
to
would
access it.
I like this, and when this was brought up last night, I thought this is really, I like this a lot. Who would be primarily responsible for maintaining it in the event there's not a homeowners association?
It would be the city. It would be just like
It'd
a
be just
sidewalk
like a parks,
anywhere
like a
else.
parks thing,
Mhm.
okay. Or Public Works, I guess.
Would the right-of-way be wider than the sidewalk?
Most likely, yeah. We wouldn't have just 5-foot sidewalk. There would be a little bit of a buffer space between. We would work on a cross-section that would be uniformly applied.
And it could be a space for utilities too, I guess, couldn't it?
Yeah.
One thing I've seen that is a slight issue, specifically in Spanish Fork with these, because I've seen a lot of them down there, is if where they end, there's an ADA ramp or a curb that comes in, then motorcyclists and kids on scooters tend to use it as a roadway, and it tends to be a safety hazard in that regard. But this one, or the picture previous to this one, was really nice because it had a full curb in front of it,
Yeah.
which prohibited, or at least slowed down scooter motorcycle issue. Yeah, that's the only issue that I see in this, but I really like the idea because of the connectivity.
Yeah. That's all I had on these items.
Okay. This is a public comment, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any public comment? Seeing as there are no comments from the public, we'll open it up for council discussion. Questions? And ask for a motion.
I'm back on the lights. I'm just fine with the town and country style. I have one right in front of my house, and it's not that bad. I like it.
We were grateful at Harvest Park when that became an option, as we were
Yeah.
ready to spend our money 10 years after it was collected.
And just as an FYI, the commercial lights you see on 89, they have the banner poles and the trail. We'll be using those throughout our commercial areas in our arterials, and we're looking at some options to go put some in around some of our park space to have some advertising that's not just the metal poles in
Great.
the ground, right? A little more aesthetic, so FYI.
Great, Theron, you want to make the motion?
Sure. I move that we approve an ordinance adopting the amendments as stated and covered in the discussion to Mapleton City Code Title 17 regarding subdivision requirements.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Great, the motion was made by Councilmember Garrett and the second by Councilmember Carlson.
Egbert, yes.
Jones, yes.
Garrett, yes.
Carlson, yes.
Great.
Leslie, can I ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Are we going to go town and country everywhere, or do you want to look at the larger lights on collector streets?
Well, the motion was for town and country everywhere. I don't know, I'll speak for myself. I think whereas we have the larger banner lights in the arterial areas and around the parks, and the town and country in the other parts of the city, my personal opinion, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Any other
Fine.
comments?
Yeah, that's
I
totally
can
fine.
totally-
Just wanted to make sure.
Totally agree. They're equally as functional. They're still aesthetically pleasing, so I don't want to
Yeah.
spend extra money, so.
Okay, great. We have one discussion item. Stephen Lord, Public Works Director, share with us what you've got for the sidewalks.
All right.
Can't wait. I've been waiting all week for this.
I've been waiting for months.
Okay, yeah, you're right. When they said that government was intended to move slowly, they weren't kidding.
We've got to get it up there. You have to wait a couple more minutes. Maybe not that long, hopefully.
We have one of your maps coming up?
No, you shouldn't have to do that. You should just click on it. Let's hope this is worth the wait.
I know, the anticipation's
Is that
killing
the
me.
sidewalk?
It's actually a This is actually Stephen's wedding video.
I will tell you that at the city council meeting in November, I'm going to make you watch my England slides. I'm excited about that.
Skipping down the sidewalk.
That's right. Pledging allegiance to everything I can see. I'm just kidding. All right. Okay, here we go. Sidewalk master plan. So just to kind of give you background and history, we've been talking about this for a while. I think it was at least a year and a half ago, I think at the retreat, that we said, let's get this done. So we spent that time doing data collection, surveying basically the whole town, and I'll show you that in a minute. And we've put together a master plan that's based, I think, on some really good data, and also some pretty good assumptions as to where we want to start. I'm going to share those with you and get your feedback today. The plan really is to not create your traditional paper version of this, and to really make this live in this website. And these maps that are editable, and the data stays there, and the data can be updated. So the goal tonight is to just present this to you, answer your questions, basically let me know if there's anything you want me to tweak or change, and then as we go through the process of implementing this plan, we'll do it through the budget. So I'll kind of show you what we've got. This website can be made. It actually is public right now, but you'd have to have the link. But it can be made public as well. There's stuff that we can share as much as you want publicly, so it's really good. Okay, so this is a map of our existing sidewalks and trails. We have approximately 87 miles of sidewalk and trail, and we have 22 miles right now planned and proposed with development. There's a lot of gaps, and we'll show you those gaps right here. This is the areas where we have missing sidewalks. Every line in orange is a piece of sidewalk that's missing on either our collector streets or our major local streets, and mostly in the developed parts of town. Minor local streets, we haven't, I have them mapped, I just haven't shown them on here, okay? There's an awful lot of orange if we do that. But as we kind of as we prioritize this, looking at our major locals and our collector streets is kind of what we're looking at for priority. So we've got about 16 miles of sidewalk missing. Just to give you an idea of what is on the map here, all these purple icons are the schools, the green icons are the parks, and then everything you see in white is part of our trail network.
So the number 22 that was in the last slide, that there were 22 miles planned, does that assume the 16 miles are in it, or
Nope,
is that additional?
That's additional,
Okay.
right? So
Is that just all,
The new
just like
development.
approved that's in the pipeline?
yeah, that's everything that's been proposed with a development.
Got it.
Yep, and either approved and under construction, or actually it would have to have gone through my review. So it's really only anything that's to the point where we have a preliminary plat approval and we're just ready to be working on construction. A little bit of map functionality here, you know, just to kind of show you where, you know, you can zoom around on this, and I'm not sure exactly what data I've put on the missing sidewalk, but there, that shows you just a little bit of information for each one. So if you want to peruse this at your own
I think that said on there,
leisure.
funded by Mayor Hakes.
I think, yeah, there's a few of those.
Make a motion.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so moving on, so that's just the sidewalks that are there and that are missing. Then we scored these, right? It's engineering, right, so it's all data-driven. And I can't help myself but build spreadsheets, so that's what I did. And you can see the priorities there based on the colors. Black sections are critical, red is high, orange is medium, yellow is low. And we determined that based on the scoring parameters that you can see there: proximity to schools, proximity to parks and trails, roadway functional type, meaning the higher the functional type, the higher the score. the presence of sidewalk on the other side of the street. So obviously, if we're fully lined with sidewalk on one side, then maybe the other side is not as important as a road with no sidewalk at all. And then we did a little bit of weighting on available right-of-way. There's a lot of places in town where the old meets and bounds descriptions for lots have property right up to the center line of the road. And not that that's necessarily a problem. We can always get around that, and we'll approach residents and ask to partner with them, but it stops them being really low-hanging fruit. So a lot of what I've seen when we scored this is the areas that really are high priorities, that availability of right-of-way didn't make that big of a difference. So it scored high anyway for those. There's just some costs there. We've got 6 critical segments, about $250,000 to get that done, and then you can see up to the medium priority there were 97 segments there, 36,000 linear feet of sidewalk, $2.5 million. So not insignificant numbers. Again, this is fully interactive, so if we can select a segment there.
There's about $6.5 million in total.
Yeah, total missing sidewalk, right?
Is that for construction, or some of that to acquire property?
No right-of-way costs at all.
Oh, so
So it's
right-of-way is
just
zero.
construction. Right-of-way, zero, yep. Yep. You can see, if you want, again, if you want to do this, and as we open it up to the public, we wanted to be completely transparent on scoring. So you can see the scores for each category there. This particular area got a score of a 3 for proximity to schools, which, if I'm remembering right, that means it's within 3/4 of a mile. 0 points for right-of-way, which means essentially that the right-of-way is completely not available here. Total scores there, again, 3 for parks and trails. 1 for sidewalk means that there is partial sidewalk across the street. And then street classification score of 2 is a major local street, I believe. But anyway, so that data's all right there for anybody to see it, whoever we want to share this with.
And again, this is only major local roads. This is not including the residential.
Correct. So none of the residential streets. It's just the major locals, the collectors,
Now, Stephen,
and arterials. Yeah.
just to clarify on that, so 1600 South, I believe I'm seeing that down along that south, that's a
Yep.
state road. That's yellow.
Right.
So it's yellow, I can't read, is that low
Yeah,
priority?
yellow's the low priority, yes.
So that's low, is that low because it's not in our control? Because,
Yeah, because it's a little trickier. So if you look at it right here, again, street classification score, we gave the street classification, the UDOT roads, we gave them a 0 just because they're UDOT roads. That is something that I wanted to talk about. We brought this up when we talked about it last week. Obviously, it's a catch-22 a little bit with UDOT, right? Number one is, do we want to spend at Mapleton taxpayers' money on UDOT facilities? Generally not, but sidewalk, right? It's our
safety.
kids that walk
Yeah.
on the streets. So adjusting that priority or that scoring would make a difference. But honestly, the UDOT roads, for the most part, are not scoring particularly high anyway, with the exception of right at the top end of South Main Street where it intersects with Maple Street, because there we do have the proximity to the school and to the park. So if you're looking at these sections here, you can see total score is 9, 14 is the highest, and with a street classification score of 0. So that 9, even if we classified it as the highest score it could get, it'd go up to a 12, which is definitely high enough for it to be considered high priority, maybe not critical, but high. But it's, like I said, that weighting is not really skewing everything too far
that is
one
a
direction.
catch-22 though.
Yeah.
It's not our road, but it's
Yeah.
our people, and
Right.
it's,
Right.
somebody's going to get caught up in that
And,
soon.
Yeah, and North Main is one that we get a lot of phone calls about.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's 2 or 3 areas of town that the phone calls are consistent, and they're on here as high and critical, with the exception of that piece of South Main there. So, as we go through the plan, right, this is the completely the completely subjective look at this, right? And then what we'll do as we actually come every year to make decisions, we'll look at development opportunity, right? So if there's an opportunity to get to finish a piece of sidewalk because some development is taking care of some of it, then even though it might not be our #1 priority, then we'll take care of it because it's an opportunity. And then obviously we listen to what the residents are saying. So if we're getting a lot of feedback that says, hey, there's a lot of kids walking here, or one good example is, sometimes there's some pedestrian attractions that don't get caught well in this model, right? I mean, if the kids, the middle school kids, I don't know if they do this, but maybe they're walking to the gas station after school, or things like that. And if we can capture that outside of this model, then obviously
And
we
I
need to
see
make some.
that from about, 1600 South and 8th West to Maverick.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be what I would
Yeah.
put it in that category.
Yep. So as that stuff happens, then we have a process for all of our traffic studies. So a sidewalk study would fall right under that same thing. If somebody said, hey, this is low priority, it should be high priority, then we're going to look at that, start counting pedestrians, and maybe rescoring things as we need to.
Does UDOT conduct sidewalk studies? Will they help with that? Because I'm with Leslie on that 1600 South is certainly a concern, and the area of 89 that's not finished south of the middle school is a concern.
Yeah, UDOT's
UDOT involved.
UDOT's really concerned about crossings. They're not as concerned about the edges. So it's not unheard of for UDOT to put in some money for sidewalks, but they typically tend to do that through the Safe Routes to School program, which we will use. So if there's a UDOT road that we think we should go after, then it would score higher on the Safe Routes to School program. So it's more likely to get funded because we'd also get UDOT, not approval, what's the word I'm looking for? Support.
Yeah, I
So-
walked on both that segment between the medical building and the middle school, well, actually up to the Spring Gardens. That is some scary area to walk along with. I mean, there's that segment that doesn't have the trail yet. So I would say that, you would think that would qualify for the Safe Routes to School. And then likewise on the 1600, walking along there is pretty intimidating, even just the little bit I did around my house. But I would love to see us apply at least for some of those things, especially with the new middle school open.
Yeah, the challenge obviously is, you can see it, right? Leslie did the math. I don't do public math, so I'm not going to add those up in my head, but that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the Safe Routes to School program is about $50,000 a year.
Oh, yeah, that's
And
not a whole lot.
it's competitive, obviously, and we usually get, you get so many silver bullets, and we have to decide. We will apply for Safe Routes to School money for almost all of these, especially the high priority ones, because they're high because of the proximity. So we need to decide, does it make more sense to go after that money for something other than Main Street?
Yeah.
And then try to backdoor UDOT and go in and see if we can partner with them. And
Yeah, if we can get UDOT to fund those, then I'd rather use
Yeah.
the Safe Routes to School for
Yeah.
something else, definitely.
Okay,
This is great. Will you send us the link?
sure.
Share it?
Yeah, no.
Is this shareable?
Yeah, that I'm going to leave entirely up to you. I'll send you the link. Corey, if you want to weigh into on how public we go with this right now, I think it's pretty clean as far as the data. I might want to just scrub through it one more time and just.
From what I'm understanding is this isn't, I mean, this is where we're at, this is what the data is telling us. what feedback do you have? And you had mentioned at one of our last meetings that you're more interested in the no's.
Yes,
I
Yeah.
don't want this here, or
Yes.
this shouldn't be here, rather than I want it.
right.
I think we could call for that by sending this
Yeah.
link out.
Yeah.
We certainly have some areas that have expressed interest in,
When as a council, you got a decision to make. As of right now, obviously, this is a discussion item. We've talked about the idea of even making this an approved master plan, or is this just a master plan that we follow? So you've got to discuss that, of whether you're wanting this on the,
I would like to have some city input before we approve it as a master
I
plan.
agree.
I
that.
agree with that as well.
Yeah. I
And I
think if we
think-
I
put
think
it
that's
out
a
there
good
and
idea,
really
too.
just solicit the feedback in terms of no's, and then revisit it, I don't know, like, when, but,
and what's your thoughts, Stephen? I know you kind of went back and forth, maybe share.
No, I think that's okay. I think one of the challenges you have of an adopted master plan is as soon as you adopt this, every time we make any amendment to it, it's got to come back.
Yeah, I don't
And-
necessarily.
And I really
think I
want
need
it
it.
to be living, right?
That's-
We're going to go survey this every year.
yeah.
And it'd be nice, I'd like to come back to you and do something like this and say, hey, we just did the survey again. Here's all the gaps that we filled in. Here's the projects we're able to do. Here's what we want to do next year. And then, like I said, be able to make adjustments on the fly. I don't want to get backed into a corner where I have a development that allows me to do a lower priority segment, for a lot less money and then have to come back here and get approval
I
for
think
that.
what we end up doing, I don't feel like we need to adopt this as something written in stone.
I agree.
At any point, it adds a bureaucratic layer that I don't necessarily need to get into the minutia of, but we will be approving fundamentals of it through the budgeting process
Right.
anyway.
Right.
Exactly.
So I feel like that's adequate. We need to trust our employees and their expertise and then collect the feedback from the community. But this one, I think, I'm comfortable with the process.
And
we're
what
going
what this really helps with is if somebody asks, why is it happening there and not there?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is it's
This is
fantastic.
This is the basis for it, so good.
Corey, to the point of getting feedback, I think maybe social media is the best way to do it. You put it out there and just let people comment
Do a little article in the
on
newsletter with a
Facebook
call
and things
out.
like that.
Yep.
It-
When would you like to revisit this? So, send us your feedback by, you don't want to leave this open for 3 months, but
No.
what are you thinking?
I think if we had Madison put something together that we could put out quickly, within the next week or so, we put it out there for a couple of weeks. I think at that
Okay.
point,
Yeah.
everyone who's seen it is going to see it. And then, that's the great thing about social media is you see it today, and then, by next week, it's buried anyway.
You gotta
So-
wait till the newsletter, though. We have a lot of people who aren't on our.
Yeah,
typical
so we put it in the
social-
newsletter with the link.
So the month of October would probably be,
So the trouble we've got with anything other than using the social media is the ability to collect feedback. Short of just putting somebody's email address on there, which we can do, that's okay. It's not going to create dialogue. Dialogue is really good on public feedback.
Yeah.
So I think you're going to get most of what you need
Yeah.
from Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, whatever we use.
you
TikTok.
likely will because of the convenience to people, but you're still gonna need to provide through the newsletter the opportunity for those who wouldn't
Right.
use it, who
Because
wouldn't pick
otherwise
up
it's
a
gonna be,
phone.
otherwise it's gonna be heavily biased, because it's the older generation that are gonna say the no. They're gonna be like, no, in this area, but they're not
Right.
gonna be the ones that get on
Yeah.
social
Sure.
media.
Or say, you know what, this is a priority, we see the older population out walking in this area, and so.
Yeah.
While it is really effective to have the dialogue from social media, the nature of our population, we just have to open it up for a little bit longer to allow for
Yeah, I'd
phone
run it
calls.
through maybe the middle of October, put the
Okay.
link on the website. Is there, I guess there's not a comment box on the website, right? No, so they'd
It's,
have to.
yeah, that's
they'd
the
have to
challenge.
email or call.
They're going to have to either email or call, and that's okay. We can handle it that way.
If they feel strongly about something, they will do that. People will
Yeah.
do that.
Let me play around with the ability to put some comments directly in this. My inclination is that's going to be more trouble than it's worth.
Yeah.
But we'll see. If it's not really difficult, then it might be easy enough that we can drop pins here and comment on particular segments.
It's
I'll see what
also, a little nugget in the newsletter, since it comes out at the end of the month, but I think in the context or the text of the utility email that has the newsletter attached, you could put something with a hyperlink to it and increase the likelihood people will actually look at it. I mean, that would be an appropriate place for it to be used too.
Yeah.
Stephen,
thing-
remind me, oh, sorry, go ahead. So with the subdivision ordinance we did a couple of months ago, we established a new cross-section that's the country lane that would not have sidewalk on it. Did we incorporate that into this so that people would know, hey, this isn't?
Yeah, so that was
I forgot
really
about if whether we
part of
addressed
the reason to eliminate everything less than a.
Oh, that's right.
A minor local.
This is just collector and,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. What basically happens, I put everything in there first, but once I put the minor locals in there, number one, the cost was so high, it was just, I mean, it was very discouraging. So I took it out, and then I felt better about myself.
I think that discouraging feeling is a very good tool in our pockets to say, look, this is the reason why we don't just go through as a city and put in all these sidewalks.
Yeah.
Because if we had some sort of even a rough idea of the total cost and to share that with the public, it would help the dialogue. Because I get it a lot. I get a lot of people saying, how come the city doesn't just put in a sidewalk right here? Well, the cost of a sidewalk is this much, and if you multiply that times the miles of sidewalk you want in, then it's a number is good to give them, because then they're like, oh, I get it.
When to that point too is, and I hate to complicate this, but as you review this, look at it to determine, is it user-friendly enough? And maybe, should we be looking at maybe doing just a survey that it's more of a general topic about sidewalks versus individuals trying to zoom in on this and trying to understand it? And that's,
I think, Corey, I agree with you that the zooming in may or may not be a challenge to some, but I think it is very helpful to have a visual. As I'm looking at it, I'm straining to look, rather than just thinking of this nebulous idea of sidewalks. I think this really brings some
Yeah.
focus and intent to what those would be thinking about who are
yeah, and
looking at it.
I guess kind of going, yeah, I'm with you there. It's kind of going more that they're an idea of, if they're looking at it saying, well, yeah, I want a sidewalk on, we talked about this on just Main Street here. We've got sidewalk on the majority of that west side, but we don't have it on that east side as much. And do we like that? Do we like that vision? Is that establish still more of that rural feel versus us putting sidewalk on both sides of the street? So, or a citizen be confused thinking, hey, we want sidewalks on both sides, when we're actually looking to not put sidewalks on both sides. Or there's gonna be some areas we don't wanna put sidewalk at all. We like that feel that it's had. So will this complicate things?
I think calling that out, Corey, in not just this piece that you've created, in some of the instructions or the introduction of it, but also in the social media messaging, creating that framework around how to look at this map.
Yeah.
We want to preserve certain things. We want to entertain sidewalk on one side. This doesn't necessarily mean it's on both. I think calling that out so people have that framework
Yeah,
can
'cause
help.
we want to make sure that both sides, the group that doesn't want sidewalks, we don't want them to feel like sidewalks are coming your way, as well as the groups that does want sidewalks, we don't want them to feel like the same. And
Yeah, we really want to know, is there anything that should be a higher priority and why that we have unidentified? And then is there anything we do not want to have as a high priority that maybe should be lower or not? And so really it's two questions we can ask. And we can ask that as it relates to this specific map, or you can also just ask people to send us an email about whatever they're seeing. Because you will have people who don't want that sophisticated engagement. Most of the people who get to it will be the sophisticated users, and they'll see it and it'll be valuable. And for me, I see a wonderful demonstration of the competence of our staff as well as our thoughtful planning. So even if I'm just using it to say, did you know everything here is planned? I think it's a powerful tool for that. But I think we really are asking two questions, and it's just about setting that framework. So as you come up with your communication strategy for it, just ask specifically what you want instead of, please send us your feedback. You want to say, answer question 1 and question 2, and then move on.
What if sorry, Ray, somebody said something. Was it you?
It was you.
Oh, okay. It was me. It was me. Why don't I play around with a couple of feedback tools? I know I can build one really easily that would allow you to drop a pin on an aerial image, so you still have that visual context, and essentially just say, this is a this is high priority, or this is a low priority, and then why. That would be pretty easy to build. What I think would maybe be more helpful is if I could tag these particular locations with a comment, and I'm not sure how easy that is to build, but let me play with that, and I'll send it all to you once I have it built. And then,
Awesome.
and then we can get some feedback. Does that sound all right to you, Corey?
I like it because the data is super helpful for those of us who care about the data. But it will also facilitate the general conversation. And if we can have some sort of a comment box that just allows an elderly person to just say, no, I don't want any sidewalks anywhere, I think that's helpful information as well.
Okay, I will do that.
Does this have anything to do with curbs, or we just sidewalks only?
So where there isn't sidewalk, there's no curb. So the only place we have sidewalk without curb would be in the new development, what are we calling it? The country lane.
So if we
Cross-section.
install a sidewalk, will it have a curb?
Generally, in these locations, yes. Yes.
So do we have a standard that we're gonna use? Because we have about 3 different types of curbs.
Yes.
Different types of sidewalks and different widths. Are we gonna try and match existing, or are we gonna all start with, this is what we're doing?
Great question. Where we have existing sidewalk to tie into in a block, then we're gonna match it. Where we don't, and we have a little bit more freedom, then we're gonna go to our standard 8-foot park strip, 5-foot sidewalk with the high back curb and gutter. You'll find most of what we have in here is the combination curb right up against the sidewalk. So a lot of this will be that, because it connects little pieces together. But where it makes sense, we want to try to go out to that wider park strip sidewalk feel.
Are we doing much of the mountable curb anywhere? Not the city, but our developers submitting that?
Yeah, we've got some. I mean, we went through this about a year ago, I think, Sean, and talked about where to do the low profile curb. It seemed to make sense in some of the more rural neighborhoods that were out, like Twin Hollow, places like that. I think we did some of that.
Neighborhood has mountable, like the
So,
flat.
yeah,
And
when-
I'm the dumping ground for the entire roads of water on that corner because of it, so it doesn't funnel. So I'm just curious if we're still promoting that.
I'm not sure if we're promoting it, but it's definitely an option.
So the Silverado in your development was trying to do the
Oh,
low-impact development where there
Yeah.
was no curb to make it look more rural. But we had some concerns with that, so we went on the larger lots to still have the low back
Yeah.
mountable curb, and then in the more higher density areas, more of the suburban.
That's right.
I've always wondered
I
about
forgot.
that.
You basically have no
Why
curb.
this one road?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you were gonna live on it.
Half of one side has the good stuff, and the other side has all of the salt from the road, and everything kills all my plants. And, yeah, it's a good time.
We call that the less good stuff.
That is the less good stuff. I have.
Okay, so this is half of it, okay? The second half,
That's just half of it?
that's half of it. That's just the missing sidewalk.
Holy cow.
Okay, this is the second half.
Oh.
dear.
Are these our sidewalk blights?
These are our sidewalk hazards. Blight is such a harsh word. I like to call them hazards.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh.
Sidewalk hazards. Okay, so this is what we spent a lot of time on this. We got some help from BYU. They went and they walked every single sidewalk in town. I'm happy to report that despite there being over 2,000 sidewalk hazards, not a single BYU student tripped and fell. So we're really, really pleased about that. That's right.
What's the definition of a hazard?
Okay, so here we go. Definition of a sidewalk hazard. ADA ramps that are not up to standard or are damaged is a really high priority. A trip hazard is anything that where there's settlement in the sidewalk a quarter of an inch or bigger. That's ADA. ADA defines that as a trip hazard. Quarter inch. Cracks are considered hazards. So if there's any cracking in the sidewalk at all, any spalling, that's when the surface starts to break up. Eventually it turns to gravel. Utility conflicts, this is where, we might have we've got some places where we have water valves in the sidewalk or things like that, or the fire hydrant is too close to the sidewalk and so encroaches. And then vegetation. Vegetation is generally just, bushes are overgrown or things like that. So those are all the hazards that we mapped. Like I said, there are over 2,000. Just to give you some context on the colors here, each one of these has a different symbol based on what it is. But the coloring is important, and we used the same coloring as it did with the sidewalk hazards. So green hazards are low priority hazards, okay? So that would be trip hazards that are 1/4 of an inch to a 1/2 inch, okay? Or a sidewalk that just has a little hairline crack in it. Still a hazard, but it's not that big of a deal. A little bit of spalling, that kind of thing. Those are the green. Orange, medium priority, so the cracks are a little bit higher, the spalling's a little worse, that kind of thing. And then red goes to high, and the gray is actually critical. If I click on one of these, it might give you an example.
Oh, there's
It's
photos.
a little bit smaller.
Wow.
Yeah, they all have photos, every single one of them. I didn't take them. Yeah.
Pretty fancy.
So that's obviously a cracked sidewalk, high priority. You can see it's pretty much shot. There's, that's kids on scooters, people in wheelchairs, anybody really walking on that sidewalk is not having a good time. So that one would be high. I think this is a low priority cracking. This is designed for your phone or your desktop computer, not for something about 20 feet away in the air, so I have a hard time seeing these. That's a lower priority crack, right? You can see it's not quite as, there's not any settling here. It'd be hard to trip over that. Anyway, so that's what we're looking at. Again, this is fully interactive, and we can make this completely public if we want to, or you guys can just look at it if you want to, whatever you want. Again, that's a pretty significant problem on that one there. Okay, next one here. So 2,000 total. These are the priorities. Okay, we have 1,000. There's actually 998 priority problems. Okay, how I've defined priority hazards. All trip hazards are priority hazards. If it's over than 1/4 of an inch, that is a priority. Anything else, cracking, spalling, ADA ramps, if it was classified as a high priority or critical, it made the list as our priorities. So the other 1,000 that we eliminated are low priority and medium priority cracks, spalling, utility hazards, and things like that. The plan is everything that is a medium hazard, except the trip hazards, we're going to inspect those every year. So we're going to go out and look at all of those again next year and see if they've progressed and they've become high priority. All the low priority hazards except the trip hazards will just get on the normal 5-year rotation. We inspect every sidewalk every 5 years. That's kind of the plan. So that's how we're handling those 1,000 hazards that we're not going to address right now.
What has been the nature of the sidewalk maintenance to this point in regards to like trip hazards? Do you go out and grind them down, or has there not been a lot of ongoing regular
I'm going
maintenance?
to plead the fifth.
Fair enough.
No. So we haven't done much. That's one of those things that we've been unable to find the money and the time to do, right? It just hasn't come to the top of our list, but
The ones we do, if we get
Yeah.
complaints,
we grind them
yeah.
mostly.
Okay, so that's
yeah.
what you have done has
Yeah.
been the grinding, okay?
But that's been really reactive, and that's why I like where we're going with this, and I like the direction that I was given to make this a priority, right? Was let's be proactive instead of somebody falls or somebody calls, and then we go out there and grind the hazard. That's too late. Let's take care of it. And that's what we've got. Okay.
Is that grinding better than drilling a hole and pumping grout to raise the low side?
Yeah, you can do both.
I've seen a lot of that done in its last.
Yeah, it's more expensive to do that. And it really just depends on the nature of the differential settling, right? If one end is sinking, but the whole rest of the sidewalk is looking pretty good, then yeah, you can put some grout in there and raise it up. But if it seems like it has more to do with roots pushing up the things, or you've got differential settling one way on one panel and then another way on the other, then grinding is a little better, and grinding's cheaper. So, and it seems to work. It seems to work pretty well. At some point, there's nothing left to grind, and you just have to replace it, right? But okay, we did.
On
fire.
I know, I'm not
Love a
messing
good heat
around
map.
here. So we did hazard scoring, same scoring criteria as the other one. So proximity to schools, proximity to trails, things like that. And you can see where most of the problems are, right? And as you zoom in on that, you can really dial down where the issues really are. And then we get into costs. Critical hazards is 42. It's $11,000. It's high because of the number of ADA ramps. High hazards 79,000, medium 202, and then 88 low hazards at 12,500. So again, this scoring is based on location as well as severity, right? So it's going to score higher if it's an ADA ramp. It's going to score higher if it's an ADA ramp that's completely cracked and broken, that kind of thing. That's really just a fun one.
Can an old ADA ramp be repaired, or does it have to be replaced with the current standards?
Usually has to be replaced. Most of the ADA ramps that are old and broken are also not up to standard. So even if we tried to repair them, they wouldn't meet the current ADA standards. So you gotta replace them. Okay, so this is kind of the conclusion slide right here. This is where I put pretty much everything together. Put the hazards on there as well as the high priority missing pieces of sidewalk, and this is where we got. The money came out. Those about 12,000 feet of new sidewalk, $1.2 million. That's just critical and high priority. No medium, no low priority on those. And then the existing hazards at the 998 hazards at $300,000 to fix those. So the plan would be bite off chunks of this for the next 10 years, including this year, so up to 2030. And then at a budget amount of about $200,000 a year, which includes $35,000 for hazards that are not mapped yet, that will happen as we go. So there's a little buffer in there, because I don't think we're gonna get away with not having new hazards. So that's where we are. That's the plan.
Thanks a lot for bringing all the joy.
Yeah, it's fun.
Looks like Vegas.
Um,
The
Good stuff.
200,000 actually seems kind of low to me, because
That is,
I
I
think
don't think I've
citizens
ever
would
had
have-
any council member tell me that my budget request was too low.
Let me
before. I'll
retract
take
my
it.
comments.
No way.
Rethink
You-
that
you
one?
got it,
well,
right?
I say that because I
Less
think
high.
that
It was
there's
less
some-
high.
it's
Less high.
Because I think the safety as we continue to grow of the increased kids and everything is going to be a priority to citizens. So 200,000 might be something that it's divisible by the 8 years or whatever you're
Exactly
looking
what it
at.
is, yep.
But I suspect we'll consider front-loading some of it more if we're able to.
Yeah, and just for a little bit of context, the new sidewalk takes time, right? So even though I've got critical things on here that really need to be done as far as putting new sidewalk in, there's right-of-way issues on all of them. So we've got to approach residents and talk about right-of-way, and then program that stuff in. So, you know, I can't go out there and just put a new sidewalk at the drop of a hat. The trip hazards, the hazards, on the other hand, is a totally different story. And I have $200,000 in my budget this year, and my plan is to take that money and start on all those trip hazards. In fact, I've got enough to do all of them.
We've got sort of a legal and ethical obligation on those ADA ramps. So are we able to work on some of
Yeah,
those
so
this year?
that's really good point. Our legal obligation on ADA ramps is anytime you do any treatment on the road an overlay or greater, right? So if you come in and just do a seal coat, you have no obligation. But if you come in and change the surface of the road and put down new surface, then you have to do the ADA ramps at the same time. And that's how we've been approaching it in the past. But getting ahead of it is a good idea too. On some of those roads we know are not going to get overlays for a while.
That's good to know, thank you.
If we do grinding, does that city do that and contract the rest out, or do you contract the grinding too?
With the magnitude of this, the volume of all of it.
That's what I
we
assumed.
Contracted all
But
out,
I
yeah.
assumed that was your intent, but I just wanted to
We
clarify.
could rent a bunch of grinders, we'll go out there.
They have service.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
city council do it.
kind of a final thought. What I want to do is put a company on retainer essentially for either 3 or 5 years, lock them into a price, and then just be able to give them a list every year instead of having to put it out to bid every year. Obviously, we have to put that contract out to bid, but we'll do that, and then,
For a long-term or a medium-term contract.
yeah, at least I think we do, don't we, Corey? If we're gonna go long-term contract, we have to bid that. So we'll plan to do that and then get started.
Well, good job. I would love to share this when you feel comfortable with us sharing it.
Yeah,
That's
I'm ready
great.
for you to have it now, it's just not ready for feedback, so if you want to share it.
I'll wait
say-
till you're
Don't
ready
share
for
it, don't
feedback.
share it yet.
Yeah.
Let me
Okay.
send it out to
Okay.
the group, but let's not share it.
Wait till the feedback's.
Yeah, and let me do a little more research on my side.
Yep.
Okay.
With some legal
Awesome.
topics.
Sounds good.
All right, thank you. We'll go around the horn and give administrative reports.
One quick one for me. Logan and Stephen and I met with Bird Scooters. There was kind of the initial company that started the electronic scooters that are available in cities throughout the world. And they are interested in doing a kind of a trial run in Mapleton. Kind of their model is they deploy about 30 or 40 scooters, have a local individual that manages that ensures they're charged and maintained, and they deploy them at various locations in town. Is that something the council's interested in us pursuing
No.
for the city? That's a no?
I don't know how that, I mean, clearly in Provo, Orem, Springville, I can see some purpose for people moving.
Yeah.
I don't know, unless otherwise informed, I don't know what that need would fill.
There, I agree with that, but my no in part was that, but also, we're talking about hazards on sidewalks right now. If you've ever driven around these places that have the scooters, they are left all over the place. And,
Yeah.
I mean, they create a real challenge, and I don't think we're in the position to even deal with that at all.
Yeah,
So I don't
high-
think
it's
the
not a high
timing is
priority.
right.
Yeah, I agree. It's not a high priority for me, and to me it just goes against the small town feel.
Our initial thought was possibly a few on the trail, but they approached us. This wasn't something we're actively
Wasn't that
after,
the
so we wanted
purpose
to,
of a trail?
just for entertainment.
We got too many
Oh.
kids out there riding without helmets and
Yeah.
things already.
Okay, good. That's all I had.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I have two bad ones, one good one. So I'm gonna start with.
Start bad.
You want to start bad?
Just
Okay.
continue
You
with
mean
the
the less,
bad.
the less
were
good ones,
half of
Stephen?
what
This
they
was a
really
total
are.
joke.
They're less
Actually, it's
good.
3 times as much. Okay, bad ones. Pressurized irrigation. Our ability to get strawberry water will end on September 30th this year. So we're going to have to turn the PI off early. September 30th is not necessarily early when you look at the big picture, but it's early for us.
It's a conservation effort
Yes,
anyway.
and I'm 100% supportive of it.
Yeah.
There's just going to be pushback.
What
So-
is
We
it
don't have a
typically? It's
choice,
middle of
though.
October, isn't it?
Yeah, we usually like to push it as far into October as we can. And as long as strawberry is still delivering water, we like to continue to deliver it too.
So is the 30th our official date?
Yeah,
That's our
we're,
cut.
yeah, we're gonna, they're closing the delivery system from the Strawberry Reservoir on the 30th and to do some maintenance.
You've got a lot of messages to get out to the
Yeah,
community.
we
Yep, so we're already planning that. and
start that tomorrow, so just heads up.
Yeah, we'll start tomorrow, but that's gonna be it. So if anybody asks, then end of the month is the magic PI date.
What portion or what percentage do the wells put into it? Probably not very much, not enough
No,
to
it's
try to
10 to
keep it going.
15% maybe.
Okay, that's what I was guessing, isn't it?
Yeah, and in the peaks, once we get, July, August, end of June, July and August, the wells don't help us much at all. And it's just one well, is the only well that goes in there. But at the beginning of the season, we can use almost only well water in March. Okay, that's one. The other
Is
one,
that the only source of water that we have that can go in the
Strawberry,
PI?
no, we
I
have,
thought we had others.
we have
but-
Hobble Creek water as well, but that's the early water because it's the spring runoff.
Right, it's not available because it's not there.
Right, it just gets so low that
That's what I
trying
mean.
to.
We don't have any other choice for water. And I think we should probably let them know that.
Yeah, that's, strawberry water is our late season water. Okay, Leslie, you're not gonna like this one. So we have one piece of our PI project left. So the big,
Park.
it's the connection from 8th South across the highway to Harvest Parkway. And we're gonna do it this month, and it will mean we have to close 8th South and Harvest Parkway for 2 weeks. So that intersection is gonna be closed for everything but the highway.
I use Elm Street, so,
Then you don't care.
I don't really care.
That's great.
sorry, I'll let my people know, so.
Yeah, please do.
Good times, good times.
Yeah, that's
I'll be
a
fine.
little bit yours too. The crosswalk's gonna stay open, so that's not gonna be affected, but those 2 roads are gonna be closed.
Start from
for
when
2
to
weeks.
when?
Starting from when they can get mobilized, so in the
For 2
next couple of
weeks.
weeks, and yeah, 2 weeks is gonna be,
8th South was already
But we're
closed a
pushing
few
them.
weeks this summer, we're used to
yeah,
it.
that's why
And then,
I don't love it.
and until we, so the connection will be made, but no, that does not mean that we have PI energized in Harvest Park.
Correct.
Just want to be very clear so
Yep.
that that's
Correct.
communicated. Okay, great.
And if you wanna communicate timeline on that, we are gonna start looking at that next season.
Okay,
But we're not gonna do it now. And the reason for that is we have to have live PI to even think about turning Harvest Park on.
right, okay.
We can't just hook them up and then turn it on. It'll look like the Bellagio.
And then per that email that I sent to you regarding PI and the filters
Yeah.
and so forth, you'll be putting out some communication on that so people,
Yeah,
I think that
we
could be
talked about
circulated
today.
throughout the year, every year.
Yeah.
Yep. Why don't you talk the timing of that, Stephen? a little
Yeah,
bit?
we're gonna, we don't wanna confuse the issue with turning off the PI with
Yeah.
everything else, so we're gonna message really hard that we're turning off at the end of the month. And then probably the November newsletter, we're gonna talk about what we've been doing with the filters and the algae and the fish and what we're planning to do, and
And then an
put that
update
out
in March.
November, yeah, and then we'll update on what's been done. And, the nature of PI is we don't know if anything works until we turn it on.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it looks next season. Yeah, so that's those 2. The last one, this is the good one, the ARPA funding, so the Rescue Plan Act funding. Today is the deadline for applications for water quality projects, water conservation projects, sewer projects. We submitted 4 applications. The projects are the PI project that we just finished. We actually found out that we started that project 2 days after the cutoff date, which is perfect. If we'd started it 2 days earlier, we would have been ineligible. So that worked out great. Yeah, there you go. Procrastination pays off. That one, next year's PI projects, we've applied for funding for that. The spring rehabilitation that we talked about up in the canyons. And then there's a pump line we're putting from the Crowd Canyon well to the Crowd Canyon tank that's been on the plan for a few years. And we're gonna put in for that. So that's a total of $9 million. So we're asking for 4.5 because it's a 50-50 match. There's $50 million available. And as of Monday, there was $250 million worth of applications. So we're just hoping we get something. Also, on top of that, Spanish Fork has also put in an application for, I saw it today, I think it was $19 million for the sewer treatment plant. So we're involved in that one. I've done enough talking.
So the good news was you got the applications in, not that we got the money.
Correct.
Got my hopes
It
up.
really wasn't that good of information.
That was
Oh,
less
that was
good.
great.
That
I was actually
less good.
wondering that today.
That was less good.
That's good. All right, that's good.
And keep in mind, that's separate from the other funding we've received, so.
Right. I got a couple questions for Mr. Lord before we move on. Is it?
Yeah,
if that's
just,
okay?
sorry, Theron, let me interrupt you just a second. The timing on this is fast. Usually grant money is slow. We'll know by the beginning of November if we have this money. Yeah,
Awesome.
super fast. So we're excited about that one. Theron, questions?
Okay, first, related to this awesome interactive website, is the interactive website you promised for the road conditions. How close are we on that?
It's there.
Is it public?
No,
Go public.
it can't, well, yeah, it is, but no one has the link.
But I can,
Live. Go
but I
live,
can,
man.
but I can
Let me-
share it.
Let me send you, have you seen it?
I've got
Do you
it.
have the
You
link?
sent me
Okay,
the
let me
link,
send
yeah.
it to you again and just take a look at it. It's not nearly as user-friendly as this one. That's my only concern. But, yeah, we can go live with that if you guys are ready to go.
Is that not the
Yeah.
With
intent?
that.
So that there's a public-facing side of it, correct?
Yeah, and it's the information's there, it's just not,
It's not as fun.
I don't love it. It's less good, Theron,
It's less good.
so,
Well, I think,
But I'm
I think
happy
any
to
data
put
is
it out.
better than no data, so I'm happy with anything. Awesome.
Okay.
It looks more awesome. It might be less good, but it's more awesome than nothing.
Yeah.
yeah, that's true.
It shows really cool
That's
stuff
true.
happening in your department, so.
Okay, Camille, can I send you those 2 links and then have you just send them out to the council? Oh, you're leaving, huh? Okay, is that all right? Okay,
Okay, one last question.
yep.
Reasoning why we did bike lanes on the south side and not the north side of Maple Street.
Because you wouldn't let us do them on the north side, because the road's too narrow in places. We've got a complete road on the south, complete sidewalk and curb, and we don't have it on the north, and they couldn't fit bike lanes on both directions with the pieces that are missing.
But is there hope at one point if we do finish those edges that we could add it?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the intent, bike lanes both sides.
Just as a good news, I've gotten lots of good feedback. Very grateful citizens for the bike lanes that have been added.
You're gonna see more in the next couple of weeks.
Right.
We just gave them to the contractor to start striping today.
Awesome.
And some more school crosswalks.
Thank you.
That'd be good.
Just a quick question about the trail connection to Spanish Fork.
Yeah.
Is that still in the works, timing?
Yeah, we actually just got the first plan set to submit to the railroad for the railroad crossing. That's the time-consuming piece.
Is it gonna be below or above?
Yeah, well, that's a good question.
But that's what you've just gotten them to, they've just are now at the engaging.
Yeah, so
Okay.
we've got a tunnel designed. A tunnel is the railroad's least favorite option. But we have a tunnel designed that, from an engineering perspective, meets every standard and specification that the railroad says you have to do. But it doesn't, those standards and specifications don't apply to pedestrian underpasses. They apply to borings and any time you dig. So this tunnel meets all of those specifications, and we're hoping that that's enough for them to say, that's okay, that's reasonable. I think they may have submitted the plans this week, so railroad engineering, their engineers will look at it and review it. That's probably a 90-day review. And then they'll get back to us, and we'll go from there. So that's where we are.
Cost is
Cost is higher.
over double what we
Yeah,
originally.
way more expensive than we expected.
The tunnel is?
Makes it
Well,
more
the whole-
expensive.
The whole
thing.
trail, but we.
The whole
we-
trail is?
We feel pretty confident we'll be able to go back to MAG
Right.
and get additional funding for it. so.
Yep, that's the plan. I think right now, the plan is go back for more money in the next round of funding. Instead of going back and saying, this is an emergency, we need more money right now, to just wait for the next round of funding and then get the extra. Because the design, everything's going so slow right now, we couldn't feasibly start construction next year anyway, so.
Reed, do you have an update?
Next week, we're having our board meeting on the solid waste treatment plant. Solid waste transfer station, excuse me. So I don't really have anything to update you.
Great, thank you.
I've been working on this prospectus for the conservation community garden that we've been talking about, and reached out to a couple of our food bank, community action, Tabitha's Way type, to see if there is a need from a feasibility perspective, since part of our intent with this is to align with our culture as a generous, service-oriented culture to be able to share with those who need outside of our own community. So I've been collecting some research on those, and Leslie and I met and talked about some of the conservation elements of it specifically. What I need to kind of have an idea of is what space, like acreage, would even be potential for this as I'm thinking about it. I mean, is it a potential for 1 acre? So that's kind of the information I need for the next part of this. So, anyhow, it's rolling forward, and I'm excited to see. I have like 3 different concepts, either purely conservation with sort of a nature walk kind of feel without the veggie thing. If it's not feasible or necessary, I don't want to have the wellness component of the food, but just have the walking and sort of the peace garden that a lot of people are, and be sort of a gift to the community. Could also be a space for art. So anyhow, lots of different options there. I'm working through it, but if I can get some context as far as what the city is thinking, what staff's thinking about size.
You know, looking at it, obviously this property here has got some options for you. The one on 8th North would probably be one that we could look at too, that was part of that, was that the Dave Simpson
We're
development one?
meeting with Central Utah tomorrow, so I think we'll have a better idea from where we're at with that partnership after that meeting tomorrow morning.
Yeah, we can get together and come up with a few options.
I lean strongly towards having it here because of the connection to the library. I think the education element is really critical, the connection to the seniors. So I wouldn't be a fan of moving it off of this property. I think having it at the garden at City Hall or the garden at Community Way or whatever it is would be really,
Yeah,
really
so
cool.
I think there's potential here. The key would be too, is having that volunteer that's willing to take care of it, manage it, that kind of stuff, so it looks good, because definitely, if you're talking acre, that's a
There's a ton of work and ton of conversation to have. This is all totally preliminary. I'm just trying to get stuff in writing so people understand what the concept
Yeah,
is.
I
Then
think
we can move forward. It's not a 2021 initiative whatsoever.
Okay, I don't have an update. Darren?
I don't have anything either.
Camille?
October, next
All of it.
council.
The first meeting in October we won't have because of the
Corey?
Nothing on my side, so.
Logan, are you here for reports? Oh, well, do you want Chief to go? And
So first off, little humble pie for us today. We invited Bryce and Sean to come shoot with us. I got to get those guys in the schedule somewhere because, man, they made us look bad today. So thanks for coming up, Sean. That was awesome to spend some time with the guys, so I appreciate that. Quick update for you guys. We're having a little department dinner over there, so I'm going to leave after this and go back over to that. But wanted to update you guys in person on the animal shelter process. We had a board meeting yesterday, and a vote was made, and the decision has been made to move away from the carbon monoxide chamber. It's still controversial. The vet on our board still is not quite convinced that that isn't the right way to go. But also we recognize that there's a public perception that with that's just tough to get past. Just so you know, if you look over the line items in my budget, the animal shelter is a substantial cost that we have. And we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot a little bit on it because if you monitor our Facebook page, when we pick up a dog, we put it on the Facebook page. People come and get it, which is good. The ultimate goal is to get people their pets back. The problem is our revenues from the shelter are obsolete now. The fees that people pay when their dogs are picked up, some of that comes back to the city, and we don't see that anymore, which is good. I'm willing to do that for people to get their pets back quick. So what we need to kind of offset some of that cost is we really need to push our animal licensing here in town. So we need to push on that. So it's not official yet. There's some things that need to be worked out as far as when that transition will take place. There's some training that the employees need to go through down there to do this different method. Quite frankly, what we're worried the most about is the mental part of it with our employees that are going to be doing this. So we've got some things to do there. But that decision's been made. From a PR perspective, it's the right decision. So
Can you explain what the new method is?
Yeah, the new method is 2 injections. One's a sedative to settle the animal down. The second one is the euthanasia. Cost studies show that they're pretty similar, so there shouldn't be any cost issues with it. The issue is I don't know if you've ever had an opportunity to deal with a feral cat, but they are mean. And you can't just go pick them up. So we need to buy some stuff down there to help them do that a little bit more safely so they're not bitten and So, got some things to work through, but that's the decision that's been made, and we'll move forward from there. I'm not the board director anymore, but I've offered to write the press release. What I think we want to do is put a release out beforehand and just announce that that's being done now, and then moving forward and get ahead of it a little bit. So I'll work on that. But I wanted you guys to hear that. So that's where we're at with that issue. So
Hey, Chief, when's the next day at the shooting range?
yeah,
Yeah, why wasn't I invited?
yeah. Hey, let me ask, would we have to notice that if these guys all came? Let's notice it, and you guys come up and we'll do that. Honestly, probably be the spring
they're
when
not-
we're done.
If they're not addressing any agenda items, I don't know that you need to.
Honestly, I don't notice it or not, whatever we do the right way, you guys are always welcome.
Put me on your list when you do it.
So there is another option now that you say that, and we can make this happen whenever you want, but there's a thing called Virtua. It's virtual training. You get in front of a screen and you give commands and things like that. And if you really want to go hardcore, they put this little thing on your belt and it shocks you if you do something wrong. So you don't have to do that part. But that's always available to us. We pay like $300 a year, but we have access whenever we want. If you guys are interested in doing that stuff, that's easy. That's fun. So, and I hope Sean would agree with me on this is a pretty fun group to be around. I mean, it's pretty fun to hang out with these guys. So, you guys are welcome anytime. So, anyway, okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, you're up, Logan. See you guys.
Thank you.
Chief?
Logan?
Okay, a couple quick things. Moonlight Half was good. Had a couple little hiccups on the trail in Springville. We had some wood chips that got dumped. So we had to work through that last minute, but we made it work. So it was good success. We had about 115 register, and I think we counted about 90 that actually ran it. We're not sure. The other ones just didn't check in, so they could have ran. We just didn't get them to check in. So, but it was good. Really good turnout there.
How does that compare in previous years?
A little bit lower, about 20, 30-ish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, not too bad. Not sure what the reasoning.
Homecoming football game.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The last couple years, it's actually fallen on the same night as homecoming. So I don't know if that's a big factor in it, but we talked today that from a family side with multiple kids and different things, that definitely is a factor. You know, if they got older kids that are wanting to be, it was Springville's and Maple Mountain's homecoming. So not the most ideal that way. So, but anyway, so it was good. Second thing, Pickleball Courts, we do have another tournament coming up. We just put it out on social media this week, so it'll be the end of October. Still working through some of the details with it. I think it'll be a fun one. Try to keep it a little bit more family-friendly again and provide more of the treats, hot cocoa, type stuff.
Fun idea to do that.
Yeah, so
Looked great.
we're requiring the costume. I'll be interested to see how many actually bring them and what level they bring it, but I think it'll be a fun touch to it, so I'm excited about that. So, and then lastly, I just wanted to bring Zach. We just hired him on, started last week. I just wanted him to come introduce himself, and then you guys can ask him any questions.
I didn't know about the questions part, but as Logan said, I'm Zach Larson. I grew up in Glenwood Springs, Colorado. I was born and raised there. I served a church mission in Tacoma, Washington, and my family decided to move to Utah while I was gone. So came home here, and I'm just grateful that we landed here in Mapleton because it has that small town feel that I love. As Logan mentioned, recently joined the Parks Department as a parks technician. Spend every day in the parks and love it. I love working outside. I have a history in all sorts of different organizations, from nonprofits, Key Club, if you've ever heard of that. Was administrator there throughout high school, and I also worked for the district attorney's office, and I've worked at various things with my parents who owned real estate, and so I worked in the apartments, and I worked on the irrigation systems and things of that nature. So I absolutely love working outside and involved with people, and I think this position fits that perfectly. So I'm just excited to be here and excited to help maintain this jewel of a city. So
Awesome.
So Zach,
Glad
what
to
will
have
we
you.
see you mostly doing? Not mowing lawns or all of the above, or what do you think?
wherever Logan needs me or you. So
As long as it's outside.
as long as it's outside, right? Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, inside's all right too.
And we need you, so we're glad to have you.
I
Glad
live
to be
across the street from one of the parks, and I'm not going to tell you which one, but you'll
Harvest
just
Park.
have to find out. Shh.
We'll help you.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
He replaced Jake Bills tonight. Jake's now in Public Works, helping their department, so.
Great.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Love you. Thanks, Zach.
Thank you.
Okay, no more administrative reports. Is there a motion to close?
Motion to close.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.